Hello again, boys and girls. Welcome back to the AJ Roberts Show. Hope you're all well. We have an amazing guest today, a very good friend of mine and well-known astrologist, Pam Gregory. Pam, how are we doing?
Yeah, terrific. Thanks, AJ, and thanks for asking me. A real pleasure to be with you.
I love it. I mean, we met on a little hill in the New Forest, didn't we? Quite some time. It seems like a million moons ago now. Excuse the pun with the astrology. But it's ever since then I've just been so fascinated by what you do and like how you run your YouTube channel and the things you do. And when I watched that video the other day, if you had a channeler on, it's like something I've never seen before in my life. I was just like, man, there's so much amazing things out there like that you have no idea about, and things that you've never seen, which just passed over your head. Especially if you've never ever had any form of like spirituality experiences or even thoughts or anything. So it's a massive pleasure to have you on, Pam.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, it's an honor to be here, AJ. And, thanks a million for all you're doing in the world as well. We've all got a piece of the puzzle that we're playing here, to make it a better world. We really are.
Yeah, exactly that. So for the benefit of the viewers and the listeners listening in at home, would you mind telling us a bit about yourself, your background, and what led you down this path?
Yeah, it was really simple, actually. After university, I'd always wanted to emigrate to Canada. So I got on a plane with $100, didn't know anybody, and just had a bit of an adventure there. Kind of landed with no job, no contact, and started from scratch. But within the first week, I joined a yoga class, and there was a guy there, big guy from Jamaica, and some of the girls in the class said he's an astrologer. So at the end I went up and said, look, I know nothing about this subject, I'd love you to do my chart. So I went to see him the next week. I remember like it was yesterday, and I spent 7 hours with him in his tiny flat, and the world just cracked open. The world just, he told me stuff about the past, certain dates, work, relationships, parents. It just blew me away that this guy who knew nothing apart from my name and my date, time and place of birth could tell me all this. And it was quite interesting, actually, because he, in those days, we're going back several hundred years now, you've got to understand. So in those days, he recorded it on tape. And in the time I spent 5 years in Toronto, and I lost the tape through various house moves. But eventually, after 5 years, I decided the winters got to me and I was going to come back to England. And I found the tape. So as I was packing boxes, I was playing it. And in that, he said, September the 4th, 1979 will be a major turning point in your life. And 2 months after that will be one of the greatest highs in your life. And that day was September the 4th, 1979. And I was leaving Canada forever. And 2 months later, I was sitting at 19,000 feet in the Himalayas.
Wow.
So, that really convinced me there was something in this funny old subject. So as soon as I got back to London, enrolled with the Faculty of Astrological Studies, studied with them for 8 years, did a master's degree. And I still learn. Every day I learn. Until the day I pop my clogs, I'll still be learning. It's vast, it's a huge, vast subject. It's like learning French, but times 87. It's there's a lot to it. So yeah, I love it. It's one of the many things I love about it.
Yeah, and I suppose it's always a never-ending process of just personal development as well as like topic development, because like you said, it's such a vast subject. And I think even if you start at such a really young age, it's always going to be ever evolving, new learnings, new experiences, even from like spiritual experiences you may have something on a certain part of the planet. It's just that it all kind of links together, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So in terms of for the listener or viewer who hasn't really dabbled in astrology or have always thought it might be a bit like, well, no, none of that. That's a bit woo-woo for me, like most of the blokes in the military. Where would you like say to someone to start learning a bit more about it, or for a broad understanding?
Yeah, I just say get some really sort of basic books on it, or even listen to astrologers on YouTube. That there are quite a lot of us out there. Just listen to somebody that you resonate with, and see what grabs you. But it isn't, I was just saying to you, AJ, before we started recording, that it isn't like a psychic skill. I certainly don't consider myself psychic. I don't see visions. I don't hear voices. Be ever so if I did. But what I'm doing is translating two things in combination, really. I'm translating the symbolism of each of the planets, and each planet is like a multifaceted diamond that can express in various ways. And then I'm looking at the geometry between the planets, and each of those has meaning. 90-degree aspect has a different meaning to 120-degree aspect, has a different meaning to 180-degree. So I'm a translator of symbolism and geometry, etc. So that's what I do, but you can tell so much. You can tell so much. I mean, if we go back to the beginning of 2020, we had a very specific aspect on January the 12th, 2020. And, for instance, we'd last had this not in the same sign in 1933. That wasn't that happy a time in the world. But if we go back to when this last happened in the same sign, Capricorn, you've got to go all the way back to 1517, when Martin Luther was nailing his 95 Theses to the doors of the Wittenberg Church and saying, "How dare you, Church? You are abusing your power." So we knew there was going to be some big theme in 2020 and ongoing of the abuse of power. Now, in those days, 1517, it was the church. Now you could argue it's top-down organizations, government, big corporations, all kinds of things that I'm sure people can think of. It's the dominance of those top-down structures and the abuse of power. So that's how we went into 2020, and it feels, I could kind of feel jackboots on the street. That's what I was sensing with that symbolism. It was a real heavy number, no tinkly laughs, real constraint, lockdown constraint. So that was very odd, but I didn't know how. Astrologers generally don't know the event or how it's going to happen. They're just reading the symbolism.
Yeah.
So that was all through 2020 and a lot through 2021, and also through 2021, which we've got continuing all of this year. There's a big clash between the planet Saturn and the planet Uranus. Now, Saturn is to do with government, rules and regulations, authority, for your safety. It's very connected to the past. This is tradition. This is how we do things. It's centralized power and it's top-down power. Whereas Uranus is the maverick, says, sod that. I'm not going to obey your rules. I believe in freedom. I'm a rebel. I'm a revolutionary. I want to do my own thing. I'm not going to comply with any of those rules. And it's the planet of freedom. It's the planet of the individual. It's the planet of I'm going to go my own way. I'm going to rebel. I'm going to protest. It's also the planet of awakening, actually, spiritual awakening, but it's also the planet of the future. It's the planet of truth. And it's decentralized. So that's the kind of clash we had all through 2021. And it was so obvious to see in all the protests, the riots, the demos, and that's continuing all of this year too. Ultimately, Uranus is going to win because Uranus is the future and Saturn's the past, but not without a battle. But Uranus is very strong as a planet this year. So I can talk quite a lot about that. Shall I keep going, AJ?
Yeah, just obviously you mentioned Saturn a lot there, and I was associated with governments, and then obviously like the things you've learned over the last few years, and the symbolism with Saturn and Satanism. And when you were linking it to like governments and stuff like that, I was like, well, I can see the trend here. But when we talk about like planets and that kind of aspect, like how does that actually relate to, like, say what's going on planet Earth right now?
Yep. So, we've seen a lot of that. We've seen a whole battle between centralized power and decentralized, because what we're moving away from through all these challenges that people are making is centralized top-down power. We are going to be moving to grassroots up. Communities, collaboration, little hubs of people getting together. You're very involved in this, so am I. And we are going to regrow a whole new society with a different medical system, political system, legal system, educational system, the whole lot. But it's going to be grassroots up. So you're going to be connecting with people of like mind, people on the same wavelength. That's very much related to Uranus as well. And say, do you know what? We're out of here. You know, we are going to have a different world and a different society because we're not enjoying that Saturn lineup that much. So we're going to go and do our own thing. We're going to, you know, grow our own food. We're going to share. We're going to collaborate. And we're going to come together. And it also suggests there's going to be a clash on centralized and decentralized currencies, because cryptocurrencies started really as a whole idea to be decentralized and away from government control. But now every central bank across the world apparently has their own digital currency ready to launch, which will again be centralized. So, you know, that's going to be quite a big battle through this year of who's going to win out. Is it going to be lots of regulation from the government and taxation, or are we going to find a way to create currencies that are decentralized, which we as individuals and groups of individuals control? So that's, you know, one of the very obvious, but just the riots, the protests, the demos, it's that clash of, no, I'm not going to obey the rules. I'm not going to be told what to do. I'm done with that. I'm done with top-down government. So that's what we're seeing kind of playing out. And I think it'll come to a crescendo in the last 3 months of this year. October, November, December, I think will be massive as we go into that. But, you know, we've got a pretty wild ride through this year. It's going to be fast. It's going to be turbulent. It's going to be chaotic at times, tumultuous. And for other people, it's going to be total bliss. Depends which fork in the road you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why we're all here, right? For the ride. Yeah. You know, otherwise it's no fun. And I do hope it starts in September, because that's when my birthday is. Big 40.
Okay. Fantastic.
What a birthday present that would be if it all starts becoming good.
Well, I think it's starting now. Actually, we'll just reach a kind of peak then.
But yeah, we'll call this pre-birthday drinks. Yeah. So we're there right now. Yeah. So when we were chatting a few months ago at lunch, and you were talking about Earth's portals, and in correlation, I think it was 2030, was it?
2032. Yeah.
That was it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Can you explain a bit about that for the guys listening? Because I found it truly fascinating when you talk about like portals and planets and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is a really big topic. This is actually, I think it was Diana Cooper who was talking quite a lot about that, because that's her kind of realm. But certainly so much to say on this. We are going to have major Earth events all the way through till 2026 for sure. Major Earth events.
My 40th, and then
big celebration then, right? Yeah. So we're going to have, you know, it's interesting. I felt very sure there was going to be some major earthquake of some kind, probably a real earthquake, but it could be political, financial, but probably a real one, last week. And we had two massive ones off the east coast of Japan, 6.3 and 7.4, you know, magnitude, huge, not that far from Fukushima either. So they are going to continue. Earthquakes, volcanoes, etc., are going to continue all through till 2026. What's also happening, because of the drop in the sun's magnetic shield and the Earth's magnetic shield, which is a physical thing, it's like we're losing the buffers between Earth and sun. We are experiencing a lot more cosmic and galactic radiation than we've ever had, ever, certainly for the last 12,000 years. And what that is doing is strengthening and energizing all the energy lines all over the world. And it's opening up portals all over the world. And one of the real experts on energy lines is a guy called Rory Duff, who lives in southwest England. And what he is saying, he's done a lot of studies on this, and what he is saying is that always, traditionally, the day before each equinox or solstice, all of the Earth's energy lines come into harmony. Used to be for one day, and that's why ancient peoples had ceremonies then. It's now expanded to 14 days before the solstices and equinoxes. He is saying by December 2024, the Earth is moving into continuous harmony with the energy lines. And that will bring about 200 years of peace. And that will also help to open all the portals, which means we can get a lot more high-level information from galactic beings or higher sources, whatever they are. I'm
Mhm.
not an expert on that either, but we are getting back online as a civilization, but also individually as galactic citizens. We're going to be much more connected to the whole galaxy than we've ever been in many thousands of years.
When you talk about portals, like what would a portal look like?
Well, it's a kind of opening. I mean, I couldn't sense it, I'm a kind of earth brick, so I couldn't sense it, but very psychic people can sense them, that they're like kind of wormholes or entry points to a whole other realm with much higher level information.
Mm.
And so, and also, even at equinoxes and solstices, a lot more information comes through to us, because what happens at equinoxes and solstices, particularly the one we've just had in Aries, is the solar winds create cracks in the Earth's magnetic field, and the crack can be literally the width of the Earth or wider. And a lot of information can come in from the sun that we don't normally receive. So at the moment, we are getting massive waves of what is called photonic energy, this very white, bright light that a lot of us can see. And that is actually enabling us to hold more light in the body, literally. So the higher your level of consciousness, the more light you're able to hold. And that is evolving us at dizzying speed. That's why people are getting headaches and ringing in the ears and insomnia, and they kind of bzzz, kind of wired to the mains, because this has never happened, at least for the last 12,000 years, at such speed. So we are just going in quantum leaps in our evolution to become what I want to call the new human in a very organic, natural way.
And would you relate that to like the awakening, as we call it?
Absolutely, because all this stuff is Uranus. Uranus is connected to the geomagnetics that are very unstable. It's the planet of electricity, it's the planet of truth, it's the planet of awakening, it's the planet of the galactics, it's the planet of earthquakes. So all of this instability, which we're going to feel more and more and more in our day-to-day individual lives, is necessary to kind of break down the old, to break through to a whole new state of being, and that's where we're headed. But it's going to be a bit of a wild ride to get there.
You mentioned like galactic and and other terms like off planet. I've been having quite a lot of conversations and recorded some podcasts recently with people that like have spoken to or know people that speak to groups who have these interactions with off planet people. So when you're talking about portals and the ability for peace on earth and all this kind of stuff, do you think like even as we're doing this podcast right now, do you think there's like galactics among us that are kind of like either learning from us or helping us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got several friends who channel galactic beings, just like I'm talking to you now. I mean, I don't have that gift, but they do. So that's just regular day-to-day stuff for them. And that more and more people are starting to do that. So we're stepping away from density and materialism and bricks and mortar and job for life, home for life, into something much kind of finer, more. It's more, in quantum physics terms, it's more wave and less particle. We're going to realize that reality is much more malleable than we think. We're going to become much more fluid in how we interact, I think, with these other beings. So yeah, that's a big part of the future as well.
And this journey learning about this kind of stuff for me has been huge, but it's just like it's kind of majestic, like as in I just don't see anything negative about it. It's just like my mind is always blown every day to the minute I get up in the morning to the minute I go to bed, because it's just new information, more conversations, stuff I've seen in movies and series. I'm clearly seeing like there's such a genuine thing going on right now. It is really mind-blowing but fascinating at the same time, but I'm actually really enjoying the ride. So like even doing podcasts like this for yourself, had Dave Mahoney on, he's like been around the world, speak to all these unbelievable people. It's just it is a pretty amazing thing, and I would thoroughly suggest it to anybody to start like just opening your eyes a bit more. when you talk about like planets and energies, this is another thing that I've been really fascinated around, is just learning more about our own personal and eternal frequency and the energy that we give out. Having a sporting and coaching background, and strength and conditioning, etc. Actual frequency and stuff like that is something you never even like brush on, like come across. But since I've been on my own spiritual journey, it's like I just feel it, sense it all the time. And do you, I mean, from what you're seeing now, when we talk about frequency, and I'm not just talking about your personal surroundings, are you finding that like that people's frequency levels have risen and levels of consciousness have risen more than you've ever experienced, which is giving off a lot of these like signs and symbols?
Yeah, it's a really, really big fork in the road. Clear as day, and it's going to get clearer and more divergent. You choose your path, because there's some people, and this is very, very important now. This is interesting. There's a big, it's one of the most positive aspects of the year, actually, big conjunction between Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. It's exact on the 12th of April. We started to feel this really right at the beginning of the year. And I put out a video on the 3rd of January talking about this. And I said one of the manifestations would be there'd be a dramatic increase in the oil price, because Neptune's linked to oil and Jupiter expands. So there's going to be a big jump in the oil price. That will increase the price of fuel and any goods that are distributed anywhere, food, whatever. So there's going to be a lot of inflation. And you can check that video out on YouTube. And so, hey presto, oil is now over $100 a barrel, getting into very high inflation. I think the inflation will keep on building. But the manifestations also psychologically of that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction go in very different directions. For some people, it will increase the hypnosis, the psychosis, the illusion. It's also, that symbolism is linked to the media, hence the illusion, to pharmaceutical products, all of that. So some people are going to be increasing all of that stuff and the victimhood that goes with that, all the fear. Other people are just having the best time of their lives. They're in bliss, they're in joy. It's like riding the biggest spiritual tsunami you've ever ridden and being carried way up the beach. So for people who are on that kind of path, who aren't in fear, aren't in victimhood, who have a sense of sovereignty and center, and they know what this is about, they are just going to be rocking it. They're just going to be feeling absolutely blissful, full of compassion, living from their heart. What can I do to help you? But not in any kind of negative emotion. They're going to be living from unconditional love in a much bigger way. So the divergence, the fork in the road, is massive, but it could also be a very big unveiling of secrets, which some people will not be able to see. Even if it's right there, they won't be able to see. They'll keep on trucking down the scary route. But for other people, it will wake more people up. There's going to be a big unveiling, and we're into, that's exact on April the 12th. We're well into that energy already.
Yeah, I can see it coming like a mile off. I think we're very much there. Pretty much, you can see all the signs of things that's happened around the world. People are now suddenly disappearing out of the limelight. Suddenly going man down with their illness. So we can see which way it's going, 100%. What can you see at the moment, if anything, for the sort of period of Virgo this year?
Period of Virgo. Well, it's going to be in peaks all of this year. You're thinking, happy birthday. Yeah. It's going to be in peaks. It depends what degree your sun is at. But if your sun is anywhere near kind of 22 to 25 degrees of Virgo, this is going to be a massive spiritual awakening for you. And that's going to be once in a lifetime. This is, it's got an orbit of 165 years. So this only happens once in a lifetime.
I'll take that.
Okay, so that's good. But no, I mean, if you want me to talk about, going through the year and what I think is going to kind of be.
Yeah. I mean, please do, because I think there's, there's going to be a lot of people listening who want to see a lot of positivity. A lot of people have had a rough ride the last couple of years, haven't they? So far away.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's going to be very interesting. The Jupiter Neptune conjunction, if you can get into any kind of spiritual practice, or literally just be in peace, turn the television off.
Mm.
Just stay in peace. Don't feed the negativity, because if you're focused on negative things and feeling, fear, anger, hate, whatever they are, you're just going to be activating and energizing what you don't want. You're feeding what you don't want. So turn it off. That will jump your frequency in a moment. So, but I think that conjunction in April could be beautiful. But a week before that, this is exact on the 4th, 5th, so we're almost there now. We've got a very difficult, almost militaristic aspect, and this happened. It happened in March, April 2020. Not in the sign it's in. So what happened in March, April 2020? We went to lockdown. It's like a forced curtailment, forced limitation of your freedom. It had happened back in 1934 when Hitler was becoming leader of Germany. It happened in 1962 when we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. So when the earth wasn't a light, tinkly place, as it were, there was some, it felt a bit ominous. So there's something militaristic potentially happening in the first week of April, just before that beautiful Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. So it may be there's some kind of military activity that's quite widespread, or some other reason, another really, really, really big scary thing where we all have to be, constrained for some reason. But just see through the illusion, because we're actually long-term headed to a way better place than all this constriction. So that's really end of April, May is going to be very intense because we've got the eclipses there. And the 30th of April is conjunct Uranus. So here again, we have our, wild revolutionary who could bring earthquakes, cyber attacks, power cuts, but is also the planet of truth and awakening. Then we've got a total lunar eclipse on the 15th, 16th of May. That's going to be very interesting because we had this to almost really the exact degree in November, and that was opposite President Biden's sun, S-U-N, not S-O-N, S-U-N. And that was the very day, because it's like an energy wipeout, just wipes out your energy. That was the very day he had to go in for a colonoscopy and have a general anesthetic. So wipe out of energy, exact to the day. This total lunar eclipse on the 15th, 16th of May is exactly conjunct his sun. So again, there's some kind of wipeout. Sometimes it happens when people pass, and don't panic about that. Not everybody dies, but they're taken out of the picture in some way. So that's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And that's just in May, and we feel these a good month before. So, and also in May, we've got some very strongly assertive energy. We've got Jupiter moving into Aries. This is the sign of the warrior. It last did this in 2011, the Arab Spring, when fossilized leaders who'd held their position for decades fell from power literally in days. Wow. So we've got for the first time again, we've got a repeat of that, but it's strongly assertive, even aggressive at times energy on the world stage, but we can use it to become a leader in our own lives, become a pioneer, start something new, and really see it as a whole new episode in your life. And the more you can just let your old life kind of fade, friends you might have had, jobs you might have had, almost just starts to kind of fade away because you're stepping into a whole new energy. It's a whole new, I didn't want to say world, whole new earth, whole new episode for us that's massive as individuals. It really is a big awakening. And yeah, just all through this year, expect more and more communities coming together and getting stronger and stronger. But we will see over these next 2 years the collapse of the old order. A lot of corruption is going to come to light, particularly sexual secrets, financial secrets, particularly over the next 18 months. A lot of that stuff's going to be coming up. We will have a massive sense of betrayal. betrayal. How couldn't we have seen this?
Well, I'm not an astrologist, and I don't think you need to be to know that's coming.
Yeah, it's not that clever, is it really? So.
And it's well, and I'm sure a lot of people can't wait for it to happen either.
Absolutely. We've got to clean up the whole shed,
Yeah.
So a lot of toxicity will be cleaned up as well. And actually, even this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in April could wash away a lot of the old structures. They're just, it's like they're being eroded from the foundations, and they're kind of, creaking and toppling, but they are going to crash to earth in the next couple of years, latest 2024, I'd say. But with that, a lot of systems, financial system, will you get your pension? Will you get your rubbish collected? A lot of foundational systems that we've relied on are just not going to work anymore. We're kind of going to be standing on a demolition site saying, how do we come together and hold hands and build something amazing?
Yeah. And, I've had some amazing people on the podcast recently. We've talked a lot about the financial side of things as well, and how things will change, how things need to change. Because we're literally going to be sat on a financial demolition site among many. But I think one big thing for me out of all of this, and you mentioned the word quite a few times, is community. And it's how we actually first met, was actually at a communal gathering, standing in the park, on a lovely little hill in the New Forest with a big old tree. And just the fact that everyone gets together afterwards and as coffee or brunch and stuff like that, and there's all the gatherings that they have locally. It's been a big part of my life for the last few months, which has been phenomenal, because a lot of people have had their head down and just trying to watch the world go by, hoping it all blows over, whereas people like ourselves have many others have all got together and come together in amazing groups, and friendships made and stuff like that, and often it's not been, we've not sort it out, it's just all come together, which is what has been a big deal for me. What's been the highlight of your sort of last couple of years in terms of community?
I think that's been it. It's been life-changing for me. It really has. And everybody arrives saying, I thought I was on my own. And suddenly, you find this group of people who are just full of joy and laughter and sharing and love, and how can we come together and how can we help each other? It's just been absolutely, how life should always be, but it hasn't been. And the real joy is not buying, posh stuff, posh frocks and stilettos. It's how do we grow vegetables together?
Yeah.
Coming together like that. And that's been beautiful to see, actually. And it's getting stronger every time, like a family of frequency. And it's easier to be stronger if there are a lot of you together being strong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely love it. And just when you're spending time around all these people, you just don't, there's no negativity. Everyone's kind of wants to learn from each other. There's absolutely no division, which is what we've been forced into in many different areas for pretty much all our lives. There's none of that, and you can just see how simple everything is and how it should be. That's what I love about it. So when I go to Sierra Leone and you're in the poor villages, they don't have electricity in their homes and stuff like that, but life's so simple. They're all there together, like out, whether it's playing football, talking, whatever it is, just all together all the time. But their life's so simple because they don't have the stresses in their life, which is our own fault a lot of the time, but also forced upon us, isn't it, through like use of technology and working hours, etc., etc. And ego. On a lot of, many of our countries come from a place of ego, whereas a lot of these other countries that don't have these stresses come from a place of simplicity. And that's what I always love about stuff like that. And that's what I get the feeling of when I'm with these amazing group of people, is just everything just seems so simple.
And there's no competition.
Nothing.
No, there's no one-upmanship or competition. It's just how can we all come together? And I think there's going to be a particular astrological aspect that's about joy in simplicity. Just simple joy and simplicity, sitting on the grass, somebody playing, crystal bowls or singing, or, it's going to be simple stuff that's going to be absolutely about human connection and joy. Yeah. And that's going to support people going forwards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, even as we speak, I've started growing my own food in the garden. I don't know if it's just because I'm 40 this year. I don't know if it's got anything to do with that. people listening, they'll be watching, I get well old. But I think just it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. I talked about doing it these years, never got around to it. But I think it just everything we're seeing and learning, and when you really hammer at home the effects that all spray in the skies and our food and all this stuff has on us long term. There's no more reason than that to try and grow your own fruit and veg anyway. And again, that's us all been part of this learning process for a lot of people as well. Like really diving into what are they actually trying to do to us here? But also how do we escape it? On many different areas. But from the community perspective, I think all around the country, you've got your stand in the parks, you've got people outside of those that just come together in lots of groups and have little gatherings. Even like me and Harry doing our talks, for example, obviously everyone gathers there, then all of a sudden people are around like-minded people. That I never saw myself doing any of this 2 years ago. And I'm sure many people watching and listening will feel exactly the same way. I never saw myself sitting in an arena with Matt Letizia and doing all this kind of stuff, right? You don't see yourself doing any of that. But the key thing that interlinks it all is community, all of it.
Yeah, 100%. And you're emerging as one of the real leaders in that, which is fantastic. And it isn't again this kind of top-down leadership that people are dictating to you what to do. You've been almost produced by the community to say, yeah, he's a great guy and we should listen to him because he's got some very good ideas. But also with the whole food thing, Uranus in Taurus is going to disrupt food supplies for quite some time, possibly until 2026. Ukraine and Russia grow a very high percentage of wheat and corn and sunflower oil, etc. So just know that. And one expression of Uranus in Taurus is going to be increased engineering of food, that food is going to be grown in a lab, that kind of food. Whereas the other expression is, we're going back to growing everything organically and naturally and in a very simple way. So again, there's going to be a fork in the road on how we produce our food, and you're going to choose one or the other.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing that battle people have at the minute, isn't it? Not even just much shortages, but how much the cost on everything's gone up.
Yeah. Jupiter, Neptune, inflation, big time.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, I'm starting to fall out of favor of them planets.
yeah. Oh, it's got a really good side. I mean, that will, if your sun is anywhere near, as I say, 22 to 25 of Virgo, that is going to be a massive spiritual awakening for you. And I sense that's what's happening for us even to be having this discussion.
Oh yeah, exactly. I'll talk about it in the talks, but if I had said, hey lads, I was talking to about astrology and spirituality and planets and that last night, whilst I was in the military, if I said that to anybody, they'd literally be, got a number here for a doctor. You can see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's very it's such a woo thing in many people's eyes, but reality is actually it's been drummed into us that way.
Yeah.
In many occasions, in many environments, many families and stuff like that. So if it's nothing's a part of your life, you don't pay attention to it, do you? Yep. So so it seems a bit odd when actually it's not.
And it's only when you've kind of got into it and studied 1,000 charts, 10,000 charts, 100,000 charts that you think there really is something in this, because it just keeps on working for people. Yep, that happened to me. Yep, happened to me. Yep, happened to me. Etc. You go on and on. It's like a science of coincidence, if you like. But one of the really great things, I mean, there are many great things about astrology, is I think even when we're going into very rocky, chaotic times, the astrology is saying that's what we're meant to be going into. Don't expect it to be comfortable because it's a breakdown phase. So, but even knowing that is reassuring, because if you didn't know that at all, you just think, the world's gone to hell in a handbasket. It'd be terrifying, it'd be so disorientating, because all your foundations could be stripped away. You lose your job, you lose your business, what's happening. But astrology puts a picture on it and says, yeah, absolutely, all of those are supposed to be breaking down. So don't worry, because it's going to get us to a better place, but you've got to choose the right fork in the road.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
don't go into fear and stress and victimhood and give your power away to some, you know, our whole lives have been about giving our power away to external authorities, the teacher, the policeman, the government. And the whole big part of the process of this is discovering we have the power. You know, we are sort of not in a throwing our weight about kind of way, in a big egotistical way, just saying, I know my center, I know my power, I know my sovereignty, and this is how I'm going to operate in life.
Mm.
But it becomes exciting once you realize it has purpose to it. It has purpose. And one of the things I know I've said to you a couple of times, AJ, is when with astrology, it's a bit like economics or meteorology, because you're looking at, okay, what happened last time? What happened in 1933 or 34? What happened in 1962? And you're looking at repeating cycles and what can we kind of guesstimate what's going to happen this time? But the big, big, big game changer is we have never had as much photonic light on the earth as we have right now. Never, ever. And so our level of consciousness of a certain group of people that are saying, no, don't want to go that way, I'm going to, you know, form my own society, it's just been a quantum leap. And that is affecting the whole collective to some extent. But if you're on that kind of path, in a way, you're bubble wrapped from some of the worst extremes of what may be unfolding in the world, because you kind of know it's coming. And you're growing your food, you found your community, so you're kind of insulated to quite a large extent. So, but the level of light has never been higher. I mean, that's so exciting.
Yeah, exactly that. You know, when you say, oh, you step into the light, you know, you're raising your level of consciousness, aren't you?
Yeah. And you know, nobody, doesn't matter what title they have, what country they're in, what job they've got, what authority they have, nobody can stop that level of photonic energy and light coming in. That it's just because it's frequency.
Yeah.
They just can't do it. So whatever they do up there in the sky, can't stop it. It's unstoppable. And that also says that the awakening is unstoppable. And our spiritual evolution as humanity is unstoppable.
Wow. Music to our ears.
It's good. It's good. It'll be messy, but it's good. We're going to be standing in the demolition site, but thinking, you know, we are so much in a different place. You know, we're going to be becoming more telepathic. We're going to be much more loving with each other. We're going to be able to have, you know, telepathy with animals. We're going to see everything in brighter colors. You know, if we're going to have vehicles that we can only start with our frequency, because there's going to be a frequency match between us and the vehicle. So we won't have keys, or, you know, it's going to be just a whole different world.
But when I picture that, I just picture sort of like references to Avatar, the movie.
Yeah. I think that's a really good example of how it could be, but we've got to kind of dream it in.
Yeah.
It's us that are creating that.
Yeah.
You know, there isn't a film set there that we step into. I think so often people think the future is just a film set that's set and we step onto it. It's invisible. It's not created yet. We're creating it in every moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Well, I mean, if anyone wants to check out your work in the future, Pam, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, website pamgregory.com. Got a super busy YouTube channel. Got some teaching videos. Got 2 best-selling books. Yeah, it's all on the website pamgregory.com.
Amazing. Well, Pam, my lovely friend, thank you for joining me today on the AJ Roberts Show. It's been something I wanted to do for a long, long time, actually, because every time I hear you talk, and even at dinners and all this kind of stuff, I'm just like, it's just fantastic. And so it's great to have you on my platform to be able to share all your wealth of knowledge with the audience. Thank you.
Oh, bless you. Joy and a pleasure. And, you know, we're all doing our bit, AJ, and you're certainly doing yours. You're pumping it up, you know. Fantastic. So, yeah, it's been lovely to share time with you.
Amazing. Well, guys and girls, I hope you enjoyed the show today. I definitely did. Learn something once again on my own podcast. That's the best thing about having it. But honestly, Pam, thank you so much. It's been fantastic. Guys and girls, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you very, very soon on the AJ Roberts Show.